This is the grand final of the Apex Arena Android server, and this is already after 6 turns, so the game is about to finish. And right now, player 1 is trying to block area 1 of player 2, except the Ares, which is a flare unit, you cannot block that. But the other units, they looks pretty much dead in the fog that is going to reach them the next turn. So yeah, it looks pretty bad. Although player 2 still have 5 characters, player 1 here tries to block the entire team of player 2. The D-turret is now fingered, so it's not very easy for D-turret to do any damage. And also the land use, yeah, player 1 is going to move first, so land use cannot have a chance to deal damage to the other land use as well. So player 1 here used the Mass Skill here, and yeah, basically, yeah, this wall cannot be break. This Shadow Jessica just use a Mass Skill here, but that cannot deal any damage. Then use the guard skill, so very solidly just a tank here. But now Ares jumps in. As long as you have Ares, there is hope to win the battle. Okay, so Ares cast the Aoe Skill, only deal a little bit of damage, but then it actually teleports the Landis and Ares from these two positions to the two nearest spots around Ares. This is just how strong Ares is, so problem solved. All the effort that player 1 made, player 1 spent 5 turn effort to try to block the player 2. But with one of the Aoe Skill from Ares, problem solved, and that marks the end of this match, and the winner of the match is going to the Demon Prince here. Okay, so that's just one of the case to show how Ares can be very strong even in the later game. We know Ares is a strong unit to initiate, but even in later game, if you don't kill Ares, if he's still alive, he's in the battlefield, you will always have a chance to win the battle. So after you check the clip, probably you already know the main character we are going to talk about today is going to be Ares. Ares is a very strong character. I really don't like Ares because I think he's too strong, he's a little bit broken. So basically this kind of characters makes the PvP, especially the Apex Arena, not very balanced, and we're going to talk about why he's so strong. At the same time, yeah, I don't like him, but I need to summon him, right? And he's kind of a must-have character because, yeah, you will see the talent and the skill. It's just a very meta-defining character. So this talent here, basically, this is a 5-star talent. At 6-star, so within the 3 runes, for each of the enemy you have, all the stat is going to increase by 5%. The maximum of the increase is going to be 20%. So basically, as long as you have enemies within 3 runes, you will have increase in all the stat except the health point. And if you have like 4 enemies within a 3 runes, at 6-star it will increase the attack, intelligence, defense, magic defense, and also skill by 20%. This is a very strong. This part is already very strong for SSR character. And then the other part is that when he is moving, he can ignore and bypass the enemy. So basically, usually you cannot bypass enemy when you are moving. For example, this is why sometimes mid-wall like summons are very strong, because you can always block the enemy with a summon unit. So Ares bypass those kind of units, and the more units he bypass, the stronger he becomes. So basically, for each of the units he bypass, the crit chance increased by 8% at 6-star, and this can stack up to 5 times. So basically, if you bypass 5 enemies, for example in a PvE this is possible, you bypass 5 enemies, the crit chance is going to increase by 40%. So this is a crazy increase in the crit chance. Yeah, so these two these two parts makes Ares very, very strong. Now let's talk about the skills that Ares have. So let's start with the Strong Wind. Strong Wind skill is basically the 3-cost skill for Ares, and this skill has a lot of different parts. This is a very long skill in Chinese server, and yeah, this is why the skill is very broken. So basically, the first part of the skill, after you use the skill, you will gain 20% of the attack. So this is why Ares don't even need a faction buff to be useful, cause the increase in attack is basically with the 3-cost skill. You don't need to have any extra faction buff here. And then you will gain the Wind Red skill, last for 2 turns. So basically, the Wind Red, if you check the clarity, the Wind Red skill basically gives you the increase in damage dealt per spot that you move. So basically, it's this skill, Wind Red. So per each spot you move before the battle, you will increase the damage by 5%, and the maximum of the increase in damage dealt is going to be 25%. So that is part of the skill that the 3-cost skill will also provide you for Ares. Yeah, so this is the second part of the skill, and the third part of the skill, you can move an extra of 4 mobility. So Ares basically, starting from turn 1, he can already move 9 spots, and he can bypass all the units that is in front of him. So that's a very, very strong, powerful skill. And this is not the end of the skill. So the first part of the skill is after you actively deal damage this turn, you will teleport all the enemies within two rings to surround you. So basically, this is what happened with the clip. We see Ares use this AoE skill, and then it deals the damage on Landius, but then teleport Landius and Ares into the spot near the Ares. So that's why this skill is so broken. And then there is a 5th part. So the 5th part is after you teleport these characters, you deal 0.15 of the AoE damage to 1 ring of the enemy. And then the 6th part, if you bypass any enemy before you deal damage, for example, if you bypass 1 enemy or 2 enemy, you have the increase in crit chance from a talent. But if you bypass any of enemy before you deal damage in this round, you can actually move again for another 4th part. So Landius can actually, basically if you teleport Landius around you, Landius can stop this part. But if you are not teleporting Landius, you are only teleporting like Juggler or like other units, then you can actually move again for another 4th part. So you can actually retreat for 4th part. And if you have tank that is protecting within like 5 spot, then Ares can retreat to a safe spot after he initiate this battle. So that's very, very broken skill. It has these different amount of parts for this skill. It allows you to travel 4 more spots. It allows you to gain 20% attack. It allows you to have the Wind Red effect. It allows you to deal another AoE after you deal the damage. And it allows you to teleport the enemy. It allows you to go back. This is really why characters can be broken. When you have so many effects, the characters is very hard to be not broken. Yeah, so this 3-cost skill is the best 3-cost skill I have ever seen in Langrisser Mobile. There's nothing that can be even comparable to this 3-cost skill. And then after that, this is the 3-cost skill for Ares. And then there is another 1-cost skill. Basically, it will increase the crit chance by 10%. And then after you deal the damage, if you bypass the enemy before entering the battle, you will have the chance to move 4 spots after the battle. So basically, this part is within the 3-cost skill. But this passive skill is, basically people always use this passive skill because it provides an extra 10% crit chance. And also, just in case you are not using the 3-cost skill, this is a 4-turn cooldown skill. It's actually pretty short in cooldown. This is why, as long as you have Iris, as long as Iris is not killed, you can always have a chance to turn the battle around. So very, very strong. So in case you are not having this 3-cost skill ready, this passive skill always allows you to move back after you engage. And then the other skill, so yes, you have this Aoe skill. So this is basically the same Aoe skill that Cherry also have. Yeah, I forget how do you translate this skill. So basically, this deals 0.3 Aoe damage to all the enemies within a ring, and then it will apply a random debuff to those enemies. So this skill may not look very strong in Cherry. This is because Cherry does not have the passive Wind Ride. So if you have the Wind Ride passive works with this Aoe skill, it actually becomes very strong. Because Wind Ride, if you travel 5 spots before using that skill, it actually increases the damage dealt by 25%. Yeah, so this is basically a 0.3 scale, and then you have an increase of damage dealt by 25%. Yeah, 25%. Yeah, it's very, very strong. And it works well with the AoE strategy. This is what allows Iris to be very good in an AoE team. And for sure, Iris is very strong in a single target team as well. And you can definitely use Iris to kill the juggler, because this skill is a single target skill. It has 5 turn cooldown, and basically this skill is dealing 1.4 damage, and before entering the battle, you can actually dispel 3 of the buff from the enemy. So for example, if you are trying to kill juggler, this skill can potentially remove the juggler's defense buff or remove the water buff. And it is pretty consistent in the Chinese server that if you can dispel the water buff, then you can kill the juggler. So this is why Iris is very strong. Of course, there is a RNG if you can dispel the water buff or not when you are trying to dispel, for example, like 5 buffs from juggler, and you can definitely only remove 3 buffs here. This is why Iris is also an RNG based character. So when Iris is killing juggler, if you can remove the water buff, then that's a kill. If you cannot remove the water buff, you will need other help like attack blessing to kill the juggler. So also this skill has another thing. So basically, before you enter in the battle, if there is per each of the enemy within 2 rings, the crit chance will be increased by 8%. So if you have 4 enemies within 2 rings, this can increase to up to 32% crit chance. This is why this skill is very strong. Yeah, Iris just have a lot of methods to increase the crit chance. So if you have some crit chance from the accessory, if you give him the crit chance from the PvP enchant, if you give some skills for Iris, you can actually reach a fairly high amount of crit chance for Iris, actually close to 100%. So yeah, the Iris can basically usually launch a critical hit on juggler, and even when he's using the AoE around Landius, you still get a fairly good amount of chance, higher than 50% chance to crit damage all the enemies surrounding Landius. This is why Iris is so strong. Those skills, 3-cost skill, the passive skill, the small AoE skills, and also the single target skill makes Iris so strong. You don't really want to call the faction buff for Iris. Iris can call the faction buff for the new faction, the Langrisser Tensei faction, basically another series of Langrisser. So this faction buff can increase the damage dealt by up to 20%. It depends on if you have how many enemies within the 3 rounds. So 3 rings. So basically, per each of the enemy within 3 rings, the damage dealt increased by 5%. So if you have 4 enemies within 3 rings, then the damage dealt can increase by 20%. This is actually a very strong faction buff as well. But right now we don't see any chance for Iris to call faction buff. It's just because this 3-cost skill is so broken. And after you use this 3-cost skill, you still need to bring another either the single target skill or the AoE skill to actually use Iris to deal damage. So basically there's no chance for Iris to call a faction buff, although this is very strong faction buff as well. So maybe in the later, if you have more of these characters in the future, if they are strong, for example, right now, the only strong characters in this faction are Loli Basil and also Anahorn. So those are the two characters. Those are the other two characters are strong in the faction. I don't think those characters worth the faction buff anyway. They are usually not used in the Apex arena. So right now it's just not very meaningful for Iris to call the faction buff. But maybe later, if they are continuing to release this kind of meta broken or meta defending or broken characters in this faction, maybe there will be a day that Iris will call the faction buff as well. But right now, for all the battles I have seen in the Chinese server, there's no player that will call the faction buff for Iris. And then let's move on to the troop selection. So if you're trying to do the single target damage, this steel wing is probably preferred. That's the highest damage you usually can deal to the enemy. If you're trying to use the AoE strategy, then angles basically can allows Iris to have very strong survivability. So after you jump in, you can still not be killed. So those angels can provide very high damage reduction on magical attack, and also it can increase the defense when your health point is higher than 50%. So that's a very strong troop for Iris when you are trying the AoE strategy. When the map is okay, you can also use Heaven's Guard. So Heaven's Guard is actually one of the most aggressive troops in this game. So a lot of players already use Heaven's Guard on Claret, and also sometimes in Luna to be very aggressive. So those are the troop selections. I didn't see the usage of the other troop. Mostly you will use this stealth wing when you are trying to do the single target. You use angle when you are doing the AoE. You use Heaven's Guard situationally, depends on the map. So those are the troop selection. For the gears, the enchantment for Iris is going to be either Breeze, Full Moon, or the Meteor. So most of the PvP player, the better PvP player in Chinese server, they goes to Full Moon. This is because right now the Juggler's defense and the Landiv's defense is just so high. Juggler will have over 1,100 defense in Chinese server. Usually that's kind of, at least that's the minimum defense you will see probably. Sometimes you still see like 150, 170 defense, but you probably will not see Juggler has lower defense in higher rank PvP. So this is why they had to really increase the attack of Iris. And in some cases, even the Landivs may have like 1,100, 1,200 defense. So those are very crazy high values for defense. This is why you will need as much as high of the attack for Iris so that he can deal enough damage to tank. For example, this Gen 33, which is the runner-up of the season, he is using the Full Moon enchant and using Ragnarok, Lacerite, King's Crown, and also Longstar. Longstar should work very well in Iris because usually when Iris initiates the battle, you could have follow-ups, but you probably will not have friendly units around him. He usually just jumps in directly into the heart of the enemy and do the damage, right? So you have a lot of enemy around Iris. You don't really have friendly units around Iris, so this is why the Longstar can be effectively working. This guy is using Full Moon enchant as well, and this guy is also using the Judgment Talisman. This is basically trying to kill the healers and kill Yusuke, and also kill Yulia. So if you have a good Iris, if you can initiate before Yulia get any buff, you can actually one-shot Yulia. Because remember, you can use the AoE and then teleport, there is another AoE. So the first AoE is strong enough to kill the first life of Yulia, and then the second AoE or the damage from the weapon will finish Yulia off. So this weapon is the best for Iris. This weapon will be available. Yeah, this is called the red Death God. Yeah, so I'm not sure how this is going to be translated, but this basically is a weapon that will gain you 10% attack, and then when you are actively dealing damage, not entering a battle, actively dealing damage, so it works on both single target and AoE. So if the enemy's health point is less than 100%, then the damage dealt will increase by 5%, and then after you deal the damage, you will deal another fixed damage that is equal to 0.5 of character's attack. So that's actually a very strong weapon, especially it is working extremely well with Iris. So I don't know why the GN33 is using Ragnarok. Probably because this Iris is like trying to kill a juggler, or yeah, I don't know. I think Ragnarok is only the second choice here. Usually you would use the red Death God there. If you check other players, yeah, this is a Breeze build Iris, which is also okay. Breeze usually can deal a little bit more damage when you are using AoE, but single target if you are trying to kill tank, Breeze build will be less effective as the Full Moon build. These are all the PvP players. So let me check if we have more PvP player here. Yeah, this is the PvP player that we talked about. This is a PvE player probably. Yeah, I didn't see much more PvP player. This is a PvP player. He's also using Ragnarok and also using the Dragon Slayer. Interesting. That doesn't look the right build, by the way. So no. Yeah, in Chinese server you cannot rely on those top builds because they usually trying to stack high health points to get the high ranking. You should really just check the build from PvP player. So in this case, it's just this guy is a PvP player. This guy is not a PvP player. Gen33 is a PvP player. So Full Moon is probably more preferred, at least by the higher level PvP player in the Chinese server. And usually the new weapon is more preferred, but probably Ragnarok can still work. Ragnarok can still do the fixed damage before entering the battle, so maybe, you know, if you are trying to kill someone that is like not guarded, that could be a better choice. Okay, so this is about how to build the Iris. So basically, Full Moon or Breeze or Meteor, although Meteor is not very popular in the Chinese server. So the weapon, you either use the new weapon or Ragnarok, Last Rite King's Crown, so Judgment Talisman, or the Slayer Emblem, or Longstar, depends on what your Iris is trying to do. Is your Iris trying to kill a tank, or is he supposed to do a huge amount of AoE damage to a certain character like Yusuke, Yulia, or you're trying to kill Luna or something like that? So depends on that, this will affect your accessory selections. Okay, so this is about Iris. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit about how this ignore the character works. So how you can bypass the character. So for example, let's just put Iris here, and we're going to use the Aoe Skill here. We're also going to use the teleport here. Where is my Iris? Okay. We don't need any. Okay, let's teleport him here. We don't need any faction buff here. Okay, let's just use this skill. So moving from here to here, I already bypass one of the characters here. Okay, so right now I can bypass this guy, I can bypass this Varna and use the Aoe skill here. This is a very strong Aoe skill that directly kills this Emerald. And then another Aoe skill, okay, that kills the Varna. And then because I bypass those characters, I can now move back. But I don't really want to move back, so I just stay here. And then, yeah, we can just finish the other characters. So this is why Iris is super strong here. And yeah, for both the AoE attack and the single target attack, Iris is one of the meta defending characters. So if you want to play the Season 4 of Apex Arena, I strongly recommend you to at least summon one copy of Iris. So I mean, this Iris is 5-star. You already see how strong he is. Yeah, it's just a very strong character. So this is all about this video. I hope you enjoy the video, and I will see you guys the next time. Peace.